Hi, I'm Ron. I'm here with Local 82, teaching our apprentices Fireproofing 101.
I mean, anyone out there in the world will tell you how to spray, and they'll try to tell you exactly how they spray. Figure out something that works for you, that you're comfortable with, that is effective. What is the best way for you to be able to do a complete, correct job?
Do you guys know how long you're supposed to mix fireproofing? 90 seconds. Nozzles on. As I appear to spray, I'm going to get the accelerator working into the material. So you'll see I'll be moving the nozzle up and down. Now the accelerator is on. So now I'm approaching to accomplishing getting the fireproofing onto the flange tip, onto the side of the beam, and into the web. I'll rotate the nozzle in my hand. Now I'm going to go in and try to get into the corner of the column cavity, one of the areas inspectors love to get us. Then I'll continue to work down the column. Again, now filling the web, working the flange tip, rotating it out, getting even mud coated on the flange tips. Working my way back down the column on the other side. There's your scratch. So now my attempt is I'm going to go up and I'm going to start working the bottom side of top flange of beam. Again, just scratching first. Nozzle distance has a lot to play with it. The further the nozzle goes back, the wider your pattern is, but obviously the less the thickness is. Unless you operate the nozzle quite a bit slower. So I'll hit the web, and then I'll rotate, and I'll go again, pointing back up. Now I'm hitting mud on the bottom of the bottom flange, pointing up. Overspray, as you hopefully can see, is not really hitting the floor, but is hitting the web going upwards. So I spread about half of the tip of the nozzle, overspray, onto the bottom of the beam. The rest goes up into the web, preferably not on the floor. Trying to get a nice uniform even coat from left to right. Then I will rotate the nozzle up, and then I will spray downward onto the bottom of top flange, working left to right here. Okay, now I'm going to stop and check depth. So I got 1.5 inches there. Inch and a half there. And 1 inch on the flange tip. So basic concept is, again, trying to stay a nice uniform lateral motion across the web of the beam from bottom to top. Rolling your flange tips from either bottom first or top second, your choice. Holding the nozzle back away from the beam, giving you adequate distance for the pattern and the air atomization coming out of the nozzle to spread the material out evenly, and evenly coating the beam. Once I've achieved accomplishing spraying the outside, then that's when you're going to step through on the other side of the scaffolding and start working the interior portion of the beam, so on and so forth. Now here is another situation we talked about. Got a big gap between the top of the beam and the deck. You're not really going to accomplish getting that thickness made up in one pass. So just again, a light dusting, nice uniform even coat, left to right. What happened to my something? There we go. Left to right, even coat going across. Again, rotate the nozzle up, pointing down, getting the top of bottom flange. See how there's no overspray or minimal amount of overspray hitting the floor. Your angle of your nozzle will determine if you've gotten the right angle to not achieve getting a bunch of overspray hitting the floor. Again, we're just scratching in this particular situation, so I'm not attempting to try to, depending on what the thickness was on these members, what I'm trying to achieve getting all in one single pass. Here now we're starting to get to where we're going to fill the flute deck location between deck and beam. So I'll do a light dusting, scratch across that like you saw there, achieving getting an even coat to the deck. What you don't want to do is put too much on the flutes, because the tendency is when the material starts to swell, it has no place to go but outward towards your outer joint in the flute, and it will end up creating a cauliflower effect, and then it will fall out, and then you've got holes in your deck, holes in your flutes. And the inspectors don't like you, because then you've got to go back and fill them up. That cavity back there on the back side of that area is another one that the inspectors love to come hit at the tops of column locations. Difficult sometimes to achieve getting a nozzle in there and make it look aesthetically pleasing, even though fireproofing is not all that aesthetically pleasing. Okay, so now I basically scratched everything I can, so now I'm going to work my way on the deck. Again, left to right on the deck, starting from the furthest point away, allowing the overspray to hit one run of the deck. Coming back to the other area. As you see, I'm running different planes of overspray going from one side of the deck, ridge, back to the other. So say that was the edge of my scaffold and I can't go any further back. Then I basically stopped the edge of my scaffold, which I felt like I was doing, and then I worked my way back, covering the other angle and other direction on the deck. Again, same thing here as you're doing on the beams. You're going with a relatively fast, fluid motion with your arm and your hand and your feet. Okay, so that's basically what you would classify as a scratch coat of beam, deck location, obviously outside of beam location. At this point right now, we would either move the scaffolding to the next location, and then you would continue your spray activity. Continuing to scratch, depending on, again, what your thicknesses are, might be able to be determined that you only need one pass because your thicknesses are really light. If you've got a thicker pass, thicker thicknesses, it will require two passes, upwards of 3. Do you guys know how long you're supposed to mix fireproofing? 90 seconds.
90 seconds for fireproofing?
90 seconds. All the longer you want to mix fireproofing. Okay? Because if you mix it longer than 90 seconds, it
friction
beats the air out of the material. And it becomes frothier. So if you're standing with a drill and paddle, that's different.
Oh yeah,
but if you have either a batch mixer or you have a drum mixer, okay, you can go onto the GCP website, you can go onto Isolitech's website, and you can look up Monocoat application guide for the product, and it will give you, it really gives you a step-by-step where it's pretty simple. But you'll, I lost my train of thought here, but as far as, 90 seconds is your mix time. You don't want to mix any more than that, because what you're doing is then you're beating the air out of it. And you want it light and fluffy, but you don't want it creamy, so creamy, because then what happens is that also brings the density level down. So the ultimate goal for you is if you mix a bag for 90 seconds, whether it's 1 bag or 3 bags, you mix that batch for 90 seconds, you dump it in the hopper. Don't play with it any longer, leave it that way, and let the pump do its thing. But if you are to mix everything just right, you should be able to make 1 bag of fireproofing travel 38 board foot per bag, which means that's 1 inch thick, 1 foot by 34 foot. That's how far that bag should travel.
That's it. It's just the difference of holding it this way versus holding it this way. Just think of your pinky. If your pinky's in front, the nozzle tip's going down. Pinky's in the back, you're at least at a 45-degree angle. If not, and then if you're going up, same thing. You guys will learn, and unfortunately you get stuck with a lot of times reeling out the building and doing this. There's a lot of times you end up doing that in order to get that back of that flange tip, because you've got to come from that angle. So if you're trying to spray that back of that flange tip and you're doing from right here, I guarantee you, you are not getting the angle you need. Guarantee it. That's the critical part about fireproofing, is when you're spraying, get the correct angle, and your job becomes 90% easier. That'll come with experience. If I'm spraying steel on this side of me, I want the nozzle in my right hand, I want the nozzle facing in. And then if I'm doing the other side, I'm going to put the nozzle in my left hand. Learn how to be ambidextrous. Learn how to use both your hands. And do this. If you're trying to spray this side, standing here with the nozzle in your right hand, I guarantee you 9 out of 10 times you will not have the correct angle. You just won't. I mean, it's hard to get this angle and all the way over here. You're going to blow most of your mud over this way than you will where you actually want it. Unless you take a step this way, and now it's actually okay. But if you're like lined up with the flange tip, and you're holding the nozzle in the side that's closest to the flange tip and it's going the wrong way,
That's gonna go
I guarantee you it's going to be a lot harder. It really is. So just learn how to just do the left hand, and if you're spraying one direction, pop it over, pop it back, and then you guys will learn the tricks of with the hose. Because as you see, you can't just really do this because it gets there. So you got to learn how to pop it so you're on the right side of the air hose. Because the air hose will create an issue. And it's a big issue when you start doing the beams. Because when you hear us say something about roll the nozzle in your hand, if you ever hear someone say that, they're not telling you to roll the nozzle like this. What they're telling you is to roll the nozzle in the hand, which is basically, instead of like this, they're telling you to roll the nozzle. Because look at that angle difference.
Oh yeah.
Honestly, there's no correct or incorrect way to spray with the nozzle as long as you're getting the product on the steel where it needs to go. You're getting your thicknesses where it needs to go. You're doing it with the correct densities. There's nothing different. The way someone sprays, how they're comfortable is important. So find out what your flow is. Find out what works best for you. You'll learn that if there's certain things such as, like for me, I like spraying this side first and then let my overspray come here and come into this area. Yeah. So I'm building up double things. And then I come over this way and do the exact back, because then all my overspray is in here, and then when I do the web, I don't have to do that much. It's already there.
Yeah.
That might not work for some people. Some people get lost unless they go up this side. They roll the nozzle and come back down this side, and they have to work it in a pattern. That's fine too. Again, find what sequence works for you, what is the best way for you to be able to do a complete, correct job.
Then the next time you go to a different job and you've got a different sprayer, you watch how he sprays or she sprays. But like Ken says, the technique is different. You will all, like we talked about yesterday, when I asked you guys, when you get up in the morning, when you put your pants on, how do you put your pants on? One leg at a time? Which foot do you put in, right or left? You know, who knows? When you're spraying, it's the same way. You're going to find that technique that is most comfortable for you. Each position on the beam, the column may be different because you don't have access.
I mean, anyone out there in the world will tell you how to spray, and they'll try to tell you exactly how they spray. Figure out something that works for you, that you're comfortable with, that is effective.